becoming man and machine power extreme.
Hello, welcome back folks to another exciting video. To begin right away, let me take you to 1986. The world was introduced to a new cartoon that asked questions nobody had ever thought of, let alone finding answers for them. Questions like, what if a soldier's armor wasn't fixed? Instead of wearing one suit, what if you could call upon any weapon configuration you needed, which you could fuse directly to your body from orbit? Crazy to even think about the range of such curiosity, but it was here. 3 men in lightweight exoframes who become everything from submarines to aircraft to underground drilling machines on command. These men were Max Ray, Jake Rockwell, and Ace McCloud, or better known as Centurions. A show so ahead of its time had so much that is worth talking about. And for such a fascinating ride, I have to welcome you to Anatomy of the 3 Exoframes from Centurions. That said, let's get right into it, shall we?
Computer, beam Wild Weasel to Jake and Sky Knight to Ace.
Alright, so let's rewind the clock and have us transported to the very beginning of things. We have to start by shedding the spotlight on the thing they wear under all of their guns and missiles. These are called Exoframes, in case you didn't know. But most people, including casual fans, often confuse themselves by considering these Exoframes as a type of armor. But nope, that would be wrong. It's a lightweight structural skeleton meant to perfectly fit the operative's body. They are also color-coded based on who wears them, and as much as you may consider these as fashionably stylish outfits, they are supposed to identify a specific docking configuration, mainly because the weapon systems are calibrated to each man's frame and cannot be swapped between operators without a potential misfire or a lock. Before moving on, the colors of this trio's exoframes would be green for Max Ray, yellow for Jake Rockwell, and blue for Ace McCloud. As I mentioned earlier, the exoframe does not function like an armor of any kind. It would be more logical to consider it like a powered exoskeleton than anything. Gets them structurally as well as connecting the nodes for attaching weapons. But what makes Centurion such an interesting force is that the exoframe makes a great attempt at separating the platform from the payload. The soldier's body is like the chassis, and the weapon systems are the loadout. But trust me, you get a totally different fighting machine if you swap the loadout. All of these concepts were super rare, and I'd say they still are. And this was in 1986 we're talking about. Now, I've told you about these weapons, but how do these actually work? Well, I've got 2 words for you. Power extreme. That's something for the fans. But these 2 words were the most iconic moment in every episode. A Centurion shouts this, and all of a sudden, a whole set of hardware slams onto them. However, unlike a Shazam, there's a whole system behind this shout. Skyvault, their space station operated by Crystal Kane, monitors all of the team's missions. When a Centurion calls for a particular configuration, Crystal activates a transporter right away, which beams directly onto the operative's exoframe, wherever they are on the planet. So basically, once they scream Power Extreme, the Centurion has to act like a receiving dock to the weapons they are exoframed with, which in itself barely takes more than a few seconds to assemble around the operative's body. To me, this was a one-of-a-kind concept. Simply a creative stroke of genius. There's no specific base for the soldier to reload or a specific location for them to transform. Anywhere, anytime, and much of that credit also goes to Crystal for making this process so seamless. In no time, Centurion becomes a ridiculous platform of weapons, going from being an underwater threat to an aerial combat master to a heavyweight brute on land. You name it and they're up for it. Other than Crystal, there's also a great deal of contribution from the C-Lab facility, where all the configurations are manufactured and stored. The best part of this is that it's a submersible hub for all things production as well as logistics, so their operations of building stuff underwater don't get easily spotted for an attack by a villain, even as threatening as Doc Terror. It's such a smart system when I say that this is their chain of operations. Build it underwater, store it on a space station, and beam it directly onto the Centurions' bodies, wherever they are on Earth. Alright, now much is said about these suits, but why not get into each one of them and understand how they are all special in their own respective ways? Max Ray, the calm and composed commander with the sea under his charge, is the first on my radar. With a green-colored exoframe, it is one that is built for aquatic as well as amphibious combat. He's got his primary configuration in a weapon system called Cruiser. Hydro thrusters, a keel fin radar unit, 2 repulsors, and a missile launcher. Then there's his attack system too, called Tidal Blast, with a discrete mode for battles such as a cruise mode for travel, subsonic speed for rapid strikes, and a rear attack mode if something sneaks up on him. There's also a repulsor legion cannon and missiles here too. Following that is his depth charger, which includes his pontoon thrusters and aquafins while carrying cannons, deep-sea torpedoes, and hydro mines. Then he's also got his surface assault configuration called Seabat, with a Batwing thruster unit and a chest hydrofoil, with Barracuda missiles, explosive depth charges, and heat-seeking harpoons. Finally, his Fathom Fan is his own submersible assault platform, looking like an airboat that's got hydrofoil launcher missiles and a smaller laser in the chest plate. All in all, you really shouldn't be messing with this one, even if you have a serious score to settle. His artillery basically prepares him for pretty much every mode and setting of a fight, but that is in exchange for the task that his green skeleton must be waterproof and pressure resistant at a structural level before having a weapon system attached. That's mainly because his configurations mainly cover surface, naval, shallow subsurface, and deep sea all at once. Following such an artillery, there's Jake Rockwell, who's got an even more insane repertoire for his weapons. A grounded personality who specializes in land operations, Jake's a rugged man with an idealistic vision. Boasting his Exo-Frame in yellow, he has the most firepower of any Centurion. His primary configuration comes from a land assault system called Fire Force, which has a back-mounted launcher, twin laser cannons, and a rotating plasma repulsor. This system is also waterproof, so he can easily use it underwater too. Following that, there's Wild Weasel, his protective armor that turns into a literal motorcycle, which gives him extreme mobility across rough terrain. Sounds crazy, I know, but it's also got a head shield, a back shell, and battle modes such as tracking, anti-aircraft, high-speed travel, and land attack. Now, for heavy artillery, Jake relies on his maximum firepower configuration in Detonator to use its sonic ray guns and freeze ray blasters to be an attacking force in the air and on the ground. But to truly master aerial combat, he turns into an assault helicopter called Hornet, with 4 Sidewinder missiles and a rotating freeze cannon. Jake also has his mid-size system in Swing Shot, which boasts arm shield blasters, a howitzer on the chest, a backpack targeting sensor, and tank tracks that swing upward for him to cling to ceilings. Finally, his awesome Auger, an underground weapon system shaped like a drill vehicle with a sonar shredder to let him travel beneath the battlefield. Simply put, when you consider Jake Rockwell's depth in his repertoire, you most definitely think of him as the most tactically flexible among the Centurions, despite his strongest self being on land. The third Centurion at the wheel is Ace McCloud. While you had Jake being the boss of the land, Ace is someone who most definitely knows his way around in the air. He's got quite the personality as well, which he brings in every scene. He's brave, he's cocky, and both of those things give him an edge when he's around the ladies too. With his blue-colored Exo-Frame of his, he brings in his primary configuration with Sky Knight, an assault system in aerial combat with 2 turbo thrusters, stint cell missiles, laser cannons, and laser bombs. But let's say he's taken on a high-altitude mission, even as high as space. Then what? Well, he's got that covered too, with Orbital Interceptor, the only Centurion configuration capable of space combat. This one has inner atmospheric thrusters, battle modes like Cruise, Pursuit, and Power Blast, along with 2 particle beam deflectors and a beam missile. Then there's his reinforcement system in Skybolt with its stabilizer pods, radar tracking wings, modular invertible wings, missiles, and, wait for this one, an invisibility cloaking device. So unusual yet so reliable. Finally, there's Strato Strike, which allows him to be capable of quick stopping and turning in midair. All of these configurations collectively make Ace a powerhouse in the air, regardless of the height the battle is taken to in terms of altitude. On top of that, the bizarre cloaking device comes in even more handy for the Centurions in general, considering that Ace is their ever-reliable expert for covert aerial missions. Now that I have covered the Centurions and their Exo-Frames, I do want to turn to something theoretical here. It's a result of the show never fully fully answering a question I always wondered about, which I thought was a really interesting one. What happens to the human body when a weapon system fuses to the exoframe? I'm sure many of the fans have also thought of this. There's a routine in the show, starting with the hero shouting, "Power Extreme." Following that, the hardware arrives, and in no time, they're walking around with rocket thrusters or even torpedo launchers strapped to their limbs. Watching this, you surely have your mind thinking of certain physical concerns too, right? Like Jake's detonator is a solid unit, and from the looks of it, it adds like hundreds of pounds of hardware to his body. Then there are other examples too, like Ace's orbital interceptor and Max's depth charger, with seriously hefty rocket and torpedo systems. In all of these cases, the Exo-Frame surely has to be doing some work internally to make the structure a bit more human-friendly. Otherwise, just standing inside a detonator would crush Jake's legs. What my theory says is that the Exo-Frame is like a powered exoskeleton that takes over carrying the load of the configuration, which allows the human body of a Centurion inside to move comfortably while using the weapons from in there. Now, while the show hasn't talked about this, I've still held on to my theory pretty confidently for a while now. However, there's another question I'd like to introduce, but for this one, I've got a definite answer for you. The question is, do these domain-specific suits operate across multiple environments, or do they not? To that, the answer would be yes. Yes, they do. It's all about the details they put into these designs, which makes the answer for this one so interesting. The Exo-Frames are optimized to make the Centurion inside become a specialist for a particular domain, like sea, land, or air. But that doesn't lock them into that domain specifically. Jake's Fire Force is fully waterproof. Ace's orbital interceptor takes him from low atmosphere all the way to orbit. Most of Max's configurations allow him to be a threat outside of water too. This is adaptability at its finest for the case of the Centurions, who were always meant to be deployed to any kind of crisis, regardless of its environment, and to continue the fight without any possible interruption from their side. Crystal Kane selects the most appropriate configuration for a mission, and he also picks alternatives if the mission changes its domain mid-operation. All of this also makes total sense of the show's opening narration, which says, "Fused with incredible assault weapon systems, beamed down from the space station Skyvault, becoming man and machine." To put it simply, the man is the constant and the machine is the variable. Now on to a really interesting segment. Let me talk about the USP here. Since the Centurion suit concepts are the talk of the town in this video, let's have a look at what sets them apart from every other armor from 80s animation, an era well known for introducing groundbreaking armors in the first place. Transformers, Voltron, Exo Squad, Iron Man, and whatnot. But here you had the Centurions with their suits rarely getting repeated. Interestingly, the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction described the show as an early animated example of cyberpunk tropes, the integration of human and machine. That's some serious praise for a toy cartoon. Much of the credit for this goes to the creative team behind them too. Jack Kirby from Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Hulk, and Gil Kane from Green Lantern and Spider-Man, easily two of the greatest to ever do it, were responsible for character and mechanical designs. And it shows, quite evidently. Their visuals are fraught with their own genius styles, as you can quite literally spot in the bold shapes, the distinct silhouettes, and the weapon designs. The concepts for these were the result of studying real-world exoskeletal load-bearing suits used by the military, and these went on to influence Iron Man's armor as well as from the Iron Man 3 era, along with impacting the modular loadout systems in later Gundam shows. No wonder many fans, including myself, call this show ahead of its time. A kid's toy cartoon from 1986 figured out things that most of the genre took years to catch up with. However, the show hit a major roadblock. Centurions ran for a solid 65 episodes in one season, plus a 5-part miniseries to start with. But sadly for them, the Kenner toy line happened to be too expensive for the 1986 market, mainly because these toys were designed to be fully modular, with the weapon system components actually attached to these action figures, just like in the show. But these figures were massive in size compared to the industry standard, which usually ranged between 3 and 5 or even 5.5 inches. Centurion's toys were double the height, standing at 10 inches tall. It's quite insane when you look at visuals from toy stores of the late 80s, and this toy line would just tower over the others. These toys also happen to be really high-tech. They had multiple 5mm holes all over their bodies to plug in different weapon packs. So basically, you bought the base figure and then kept on buying separate weapon systems. As fun as it sounds for the kids, it was actually a nightmare for parents at the time. And rightly so. It's a lot of money to spend on one particular toy, if you look at it. Based on the price tag, it makes sense that a lot of them went for a one-time purchase like Transformers instead. So while the quality of the Centurion toys, along with their mechanisms, was great, generally speaking, it was seen as a financial investment too high for parents to pay for. So maybe the peculiarity of the engineering these toys had, which were intended to be their USP, only turned out to be their commercial weakness that killed the toy line. It was accuracy versus affordability, and the latter rightfully won. But the drama regarding the toy line didn't end there. Kenner sold the toy line to Tonka and then to Hasbro, who apparently called for the physical destruction of the original steel molds used for manufacturing those figures. This included the unreleased figures too, such as for Rex Charger and John Thunder. It was controversial then, and it is even more puzzling now. Some prefer thinking of this as a tax write-off, while others like to think Hasbro wanted to clear out the shelves for their core brands. Interestingly, the second theory seemed to work. Decades later, with the recreated pieces of classic cartoons like Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, and Thundercats hitting the shelves again for the nostalgia-obsessed market, there are no signs of Centurions. One of the most unique toy lines of the 80s, almost forgotten. Even retaining the rights now is complicated. Warner Brothers owns the animation library after buying Ruby Spears in the early 90s, but the brand rights to Centurions happen to be owned by a private firm, seemingly locking the property away. So there's little to no hope of obtaining a license for its usage of any kind, as things stand. With that tragic ending, we come to the end of this video. The Centurions offered certain aspects to the action cartoon industry of the 80s, which have never been replicated since then, and have only majorly influenced the way mechanical superheroes with their weapon systems and action machinery work. It is truly one of a kind, even from a storytelling point of view, with great protagonists like Max Ray, Jake Rockwell, and Ace McCloud, who bossed their Exo-Frames and their different configurations like never seen before and never seen since. 3 operatives with 3 primary domains, and a concept that was so ahead of everything around it in 1986. A show of quality like this one ran into a wall due to its obsession with details, since they applied that approach to their toys as well, leading them to be rather expensive in comparison with others. But all in all, my flattery of the idea of such a story will never be compromised. I'll simply end with Man and Machine, Power Extreme. Thanks for watching this video. If you had a good time, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and let us know your favorite Centurion and why in the comments section below. I'd love to read what you guys have to say. And finally, please subscribe to Marvelous Videos for more such content. Until next time, take care and ciao!